ain't get to tell you, I ain't get to tell about Udi. Then I gotta die by that. You saw my shit. I gotta die if I tell what happened. That's crazy, y'all. I ain't really gonna die by it.
What if I told you that 2,000 people watched a woman beg for her life on Facebook Live, and 3 hours later, she was dead? I'm not talking about some distant tragedy you scroll past. I'm talking about real people, real pain, and a real murder that unfolded in real time while thousands watched through their phone screens, powerless to stop what was coming. Have you ever seen someone crying for help online and wondered if you should intervene? Have you ever watched a live stream turn dark and felt that pit in your stomach, knowing something terrible was about to happen? Most of us have been there, frozen behind our screens, witnessing someone's worst moment. But here's what's terrifying: we've become digital witnesses to crimes we never signed up to see. Every day, domestic violence spills onto social media platforms, and we're forced to choose, scroll past, or step in. The problem is, by the time we recognize the warning signs, it's often too late. This is the story of Zaria Carr, known online as Duchess Dior, a 27-year-old mother and rising social media influencer whose final Facebook Live became a desperate cry for help that 2,000 people heard, but couldn't answer in time. June 14, 2025. Twin City, Georgia. A small town where everyone knows everyone, and secrets don't stay buried long. But some secrets are deadlier than others, and some live streams should never have gone live. By the end of this story, you'll understand exactly how to spot the digital red flags that could save someone's life, maybe even your own. Because what happened to Zaria wasn't just a domestic violence tragedy. It was a masterclass in manipulation, control, and how social media can become both a lifeline and a death sentence. If this story teaches you something valuable, something that could help you recognize these warning signs in your own life or community, hit that like button. Because awareness is the first step to prevention, and prevention is the only way we stop this from happening again. But to understand how 2,000 strangers became witnesses to murder, we need to meet the woman behind the screen. Zaria Khadija Carr wasn't born to be famous. She was born in rural Georgia, in Emmanuel County, where the landscape rolls with farms and the population of her hometown, Twin City, barely scratches 1,500 people. This wasn't the kind of place where influencers are made, it was the kind of place where dreams go to die if you don't fight for them. But Zaria? She was a fighter from day one. Growing up in modest circumstances, Zaria learned early that if you wanted something, you worked for it. Details about her childhood remain private. She guarded her past like a treasure, but those who knew her described a young woman forged by determination and an unbreakable spirit. Her quick wit and creative energy drew people in, even in high school, where her outgoing personality made her unforgettable. By her late teens, Zaria had become a mother to 2 beautiful children, a daughter and a son who would become the stars of her social media universe. And that's where everything changed. Motherhood didn't slow Zaria down, it accelerated her. She found her voice online, turning the struggles of young motherhood into content that resonated with thousands. Under the handle, Duchess Dior, she built something remarkable, an authentic brand that blended glamour with grit, vulnerability with strength. Her content was raw, real, and relatable. DIY beauty tutorials filmed in her modest bathroom. Maternity shoots in flowing dresses against Georgia's golden hour light. Candid talks about the realities of raising little queens and kings in a world that demanded everything from black women and gave back so little. But it was her authenticity that made her special. While other influencers curated perfect lives, Zaria showed the beautiful mess of real life. Birthday parties with dollar store decorations that looked like $1 million because of her creativity. Parenting hacks that actually worked for real mothers with real budgets. Rants about toxic relationships that hit so close to home, you wondered if she was reading your diary. Her home on the 100 block of 5th Avenue in Twin City became her studio, her sanctuary, her stage. It was modest, not the mansion you'd expect from someone with her following, but she made it work. She dabbled in side hustles, reselling clothes, promoting local events, anything to build her brand and support her children. Thousands of followers watched her transform from small-town single mom to social media maven. They celebrated her wins, supported her through her struggles, and admired how she turned vulnerability into visibility. She wasn't just posting content, she was building community. Her family network, siblings, cousins, friends scattered across the Twin City area, formed her support system. They rallied around her success, proud to see one of their own breaking barriers and building something from nothing. But behind every perfect post lies an imperfect reality. And Zaria's reality was about to collide with a man whose darkness would overshadow her light, whose jealousy would turn her gift into a weapon against her, and whose control would transform her platform into a stage for the unthinkable. The woman the world knew as Duchess Dior was about to meet her match, and her doom. Every queen needs a king, but what happens when the crown comes with chains? Enter Jean-Marcus Jamil Carr, known online as the Frenchman, a 36-year-old entrepreneur who would become both Zaria's greatest love and her final mistake. 9 years her senior, Jean-Marcus carried himself with the swagger of a man who had seen the world and conquered it. At least, that's the story he sold. The truth was far more complex. Born around 1989 in Emmanuel County, the same rural Georgia landscape that shaped Zaria, Jean-Marcus channeled his energy into a French bulldog breeding business that became his ticket to the flashy lifestyle he craved. His social media was a non-stop showcase of success, custom vehicles, high-stakes business deals, and videos featuring his prized pups alongside celebrities and influencers. But success stories have shadows, and Jean-Marcus's shadow was long and dark. Court records painted a picture that contradicted his online persona. 5 years in prison for aggravated assault, firearms possession, and drug charges dating back to 2012. These weren't youthful mistakes, they were patterns of violence that should have been red flags visible from space. Yet charisma can blind us to danger, and Jean-Marcus had charisma in spades. Associates described him as generous yet possessive, charming yet volatile, a man whose temper could flip like a switch when things didn't go his way. He was the type of person who could make you feel like the most important person in the world, until you crossed him. When Zaria and Jean-Marcus met in the early 2020s, it must have felt like destiny. Two ambitious entrepreneurs from the same small Georgia county, both building empires from nothing. Her creative flair paired with his business savvy. Their joint posts showed them as a power couple, posing with their Dodge Challenger, celebrating milestones, projecting success and unity to the world. The wedding photos were beautiful. The honeymoon phase was intoxicating. For a moment, it looked like Zaria had found her happily ever after. But fairy tales don't include criminal records, and happily ever after doesn't come with confession videos about cheating on your pregnant wife. The cracks appeared early, spiderwebbing across their picture-perfect facade. Infidelity rumors swirled like Georgia summer storms, persistent, damaging, impossible to ignore. Jean-Marcus didn't just cheat, he confessed to it in heated live streams, admitting to betraying Zaria during her pregnancies when she was most vulnerable. Have you seen these red flags in relationships around you? The public humiliation disguised as honesty. The partner who airs dirty laundry online, using shame as a weapon. Let me know in the comments, because these patterns are more common than we want to admit. Their relationship became a digital spectacle, with arguments spilling onto Facebook Lives that drew thousands of viewers. What should have been private conflicts became public entertainment, with fans picking sides and adding fuel to an already dangerous fire. Zaria often positioned herself as the resilient partner, using her platform to discuss red flags in marriages, emotional manipulation, financial control, the slow erosion of self-worth. She didn't know she was describing her own life, or maybe she did and hoped someone would read between the lines. Friends later revealed the truth. Years of verbal abuse behind closed doors. Jean-Marcus's jealousy over Zaria's growing fame became a poison that infected everything. The more successful she became, the more controlling he grew. The more followers she gained, the more isolated she felt in her own home. Despite separations and reconciliations, the classic cycle of abuse, they continued co-parenting their children, taking family vacations, maintaining the illusion of unity for the cameras. But unity built on fear isn't unity at all, it's survival. Zaria's final posts hinted at the depth of her desperation. Cryptic messages about choosing the wrong partner. Fears of losing her life or freedom. These weren't random thoughts, they were cries for help disguised as social media musings. She was caught in a cycle familiar to millions of domestic violence survivors, love laced with danger, hope poisoned by fear, a voice amplified by social media but silenced by intimidation. Shamarcus's breeding business became more than a career, it was a symbol of his need to control, to dominate, to own everything he touched. His social media was a stage for bravado, featuring videos of confrontations, boasts about wealth, and rants against anyone who dared challenge his authority. But control is an illusion, and illusions shatter. The man who called himself the Frenchman was about to lose everything he thought he owned, including the woman whose light he could never extinguish and whose voice he could never truly silence. June 14th started like any other day, until it became the day that changed everything. At 6:30 p.m., Zaria went live on Facebook from their Twin City home. Her face, usually radiant with the confidence that made her Duchess d'Or persona so compelling, was etched with exhaustion and something deeper, a desperation that cut through the screen like broken glass. "I really don't know what to do," she said to her phone camera, her voice carrying the weight of countless sleepless nights. "But I need help before I lose my life or freedom. My kids need me." The comments section exploded immediately. 2,000 viewers, people who had followed her journey, celebrated her wins, supported her through struggles, suddenly found themselves witnessing something no one should have to see. The woman they knew as the confident Duchess d'Or was cracking, and the fractures were showing in real time. "Girl, call the police. Get out of there now. Someone call 911. Some viewers actually did call 911, their voices shaking as they tried to explain to dispatchers that they were watching a potential domestic violence situation unfold live on Facebook. But how do you explain digital desperation to someone who deals in physical addresses and concrete evidence? Then the atmosphere changed. The energy shifted. Something moved in the background of the frame. Shamarcus appeared like a storm cloud, uninvited but inevitable. In his hand, a knife. Not hidden, not concealed, but displayed like a prop in a twisted performance. His voice boomed with the kind of anger that makes your blood run cold, even through a phone screen. "I swear you'll die," he snarled, the words hitting 2,000 people simultaneously, each one feeling the chill of witnessing a death threat in real time. Zaria's response revealed everything about who she was in that moment, defiant even in terror, refusing to bow even with a blade pointed at her heart. "Damn, I gotta die about that." The exchange that followed was chaos distilled into live-stream format. Accusations of infidelity flew like bullets. Shamarcus grabbed the phone, his face filling the frame with rage, demanding Zaria leave the shot. His voice muttered about the devil blocking his truths, the words of a man whose reality had disconnected from everyone else's. The scuffle that ended the live was brief but devastating. 2,000 people watched the screen shake, heard the sounds of struggle, saw their connection to Zaria severed in an instant. The live stream ended abruptly, leaving 2,000 strangers in stunned silence, staring at their phones, knowing they had just witnessed a prelude to something unspeakable. What followed happened behind closed doors, away from the digital witnesses who had become unwilling participants in this tragedy. According to investigators, the violence escalated immediately. Shamarcus physically assaulted Zaria, striking her repeatedly, each blow powered by years of resentment, jealousy, and uncontrolled rage. Then came the gunshot. At close range, execution style, the bullet that ended Zaria's life also shattered the illusion that social media could protect anyone from real-world violence. Her children, mercifully, were safely with relatives, a small blessing in an ocean of horror. By 9:30 p.m., neighbors reported the sounds that confirmed everyone's worst fears, gunshots and screams echoing through the quiet streets of Twin City. The domestic disturbance call brought officers from the Twin City Police Department, Emmanuel County Sheriff's Office, and EMS racing to the 100 block of 5th Avenue. They found Zaria unconscious on her living room floor, blood pooling around a woman who had spent years creating content about resilience, survival, and hope. Despite frantic efforts by first responders, she was pronounced dead at the scene, her final moments a stark betrayal of the life she had fought so hard to build. Shamarcus had vanished, taking Zaria's black 2021 Dodge Challenger, the same car they had posed with in happier times, now transformed into a getaway vehicle for murder. A statewide alert went out immediately: armed and dangerous, wanted for murder, approach with extreme caution. But the manhunt had an eerie digital component. Shamarcus's own live streams from earlier that day served as unwitting evidence, viewed by thousands who were now piecing together the prelude to tragedy. His confessions to cheating, his rage about betrayal, his threats and accusations, all of it archived in the cloud, all of it building a case against him even as he fled into the Georgia night. The assault and shooting stemmed from a toxic brew that had been fermenting for years: resentment over her success, public humiliation over his failures, and the untreated rage of a man who saw violence as the solution to problems he had created. As one viewer later posted in a comment that went viral, "She was screaming for help, and we all watched." That sentence haunted thousands of people who realized they had become digital witnesses to domestic violence, powerless observers to a murder that unfolded in real time across their screens. The age of social media had created a new kind of trauma, the trauma of watching someone die while being unable to reach through the screen to save them. While Zaria lay dying, her killer was writing his own ending. The black 2021 Dodge Challenger, once a symbol of their success as a power couple, now carried Shamarcus through the Georgia night like a hearse racing toward its own funeral. The statewide manhunt that followed wasn't just law enforcement pursuing a suspect, it was justice chasing a man who had nowhere left to run. Multi-agency task forces mobilized across Georgia. The Twin City Police Department, Emmanuel County Sheriff's Office, and Georgia Bureau of Investigation coordinated the largest manhunt the region had seen in years. The armed and dangerous alert spread like wildfire across police radio channels, social media platforms, and local news networks. But this wasn't a typical fugitive chase. This was a digital age manhunt where the suspect's own social media history became evidence, where his previous live streams provided psychological profiles, and where thousands of civilians armed with smartphones became unofficial deputies tracking his movements through posts and tips. Shamarcus's psychological unraveling played out in real time across multiple platforms. Even while fleeing, he couldn't resist the urge to control the narrative, posting cryptic messages and videos that revealed a man completely disconnected from reality. His earlier live streams, the ones where he confessed to infidelity, raged about betrayal, and made threats, now served as a roadmap to his mindset, helping law enforcement predict his next moves. The man who had spent years building an online persona as the Frenchman, successful breeder, entrepreneur, alpha male, was now reduced to a desperate fugitive whose digital footprint had become his own trap. Hours passed. The Challenger was spotted on highway cameras, reported by witnesses, tracked through cell phone pings that painted a picture of a man with no plan and no hope. This wasn't the calculated escape of a criminal mastermind, this was the panicked flight of someone who had destroyed everything and everyone he claimed to love. Wayne County became the final stage for this tragedy. Deputies spotted the Challenger and attempted a traffic stop, but Shamarcus had already made his decision. The chase was brief, not the high-speed Hollywood pursuit you might imagine, but the sad, inevitable conclusion to a story that could only end one way. The single gunshot that ended Shamarcus Carr's life was self-inflicted, fired inside the stolen vehicle that had once represented his dreams. No dramatic standoff. No final words. No redemption or revelation. Just the quiet, pathetic end of a man who had chosen violence over accountability, control over love, and death over facing the consequences of his actions. 2 lives lost. 2 children orphaned. 1 small Georgia community forever changed. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation took over Zaria's case while Wayne County Sheriff's Office handled Shamarcus's death. The autopsies confirmed what everyone already knew: Zaria died from a gunshot wound preceded by blunt force trauma from the assault. Shamarcus died from a self-inflicted gunshot to the head. Toxicology reports revealed no substances influencing Shamarcus's actions. This wasn't a crime of passion fueled by drugs or alcohol. This was pure, calculated rage executed by a man in full control of his faculties, which somehow made it even more terrifying. Within days, the GBI released their findings. Shamarcus had physically assaulted Zaria before shooting her, confirming the murder-suicide narrative that had been obvious to anyone who watched the live stream. No charges were filed against him. Obviously, you can't prosecute a corpse, but the case file was forwarded to the Middle Judicial Circuit District Attorney's Office for review. The investigation canvassed social media like archaeologists studying digital artifacts, uncovering months of escalating disputes, threats disguised as relationship drama, and warning signs that, in retrospect, seemed obvious to everyone except the people who could have prevented this tragedy. By September 2025, the case was officially closed. No new revelations. No shocking twists. No justice for Zaria beyond the knowledge that her killer would never hurt anyone else. But community advocates pushed for something more: a deeper analysis of how social media platforms handle domestic violence, how law enforcement responds to digital red flags, and how society can better protect people like Zaria from people like Shamarcus. The questions lingered long after the case file was sealed. Could this have been prevented? Should social media companies have algorithms that detect domestic violence? Are we all complicit when we watch abuse unfold online and do nothing? These questions didn't die with Shamarcus' car. They lived on, demanding answers that a small Georgia town was ill-equipped to provide. But Zaria's story didn't end with her death. It sparked a movement. Within hours of the news breaking, social media exploded with grief, rage, and determination. The hashtag Justice for Duchess began trending across multiple platforms, transforming from a memorial into a movement that reached far beyond Twin City, Georgia. TikTok creators with millions of followers shared Zaria's story, breaking down the red flags that viewers had witnessed in real time. Twitter threads dissected the intersection of domestic violence and social media, with experts and survivors sharing insights about how abuse translates to digital platforms. The response wasn't just thoughts and prayers, it was action. Fundraisers launched immediately to support Zaria's children, raising thousands of dollars within days. Domestic violence shelters across Georgia received donations in her memory. Organizations dedicated to helping abuse survivors saw volunteer applications spike as people channeled their grief into purpose. But the reckoning went deeper than charitable giving. Social media platforms faced uncomfortable questions about their role in this tragedy. Facebook, where the final live stream occurred, found itself under scrutiny from advocates demanding better algorithms to detect domestic violence in real time. Critics pointed out that while the platform could instantly flag copyrighted music, it couldn't identify a woman begging for her life on live stream. The broader conversation forced society to confront an uncomfortable truth: we become digital voyeurs to violence, witnesses to abuse, spectators to someone else's worst moments. The 2,000 people who watched Zaria's final live stream represented millions more who had seen similar situations unfold online: domestic disputes, mental health crises, threats, and intimidation broadcast to the world. Share this video to spread awareness about domestic violence warning signs, because awareness without action is just entertainment, and entertainment built on someone's pain isn't entertainment at all, it's exploitation. Shamarcus's French bulldog breeding business shuttered overnight, his social media pages flooded with condemnations from people who had once admired his apparent success. The luxury cars, the flashy lifestyle, the entrepreneurial image, all of it crumbled under the weight of what he had done. But the business consequences were just the surface level of a much deeper reckoning. The case forced Georgia law enforcement to examine how they respond to digital domestic violence. The fact that multiple people called 911 during Zaria's live stream, yet no one arrived in time to save her, raised questions about protocols, response times, and the challenges of translating online threats into real-world intervention. Mental health advocates seized on the case to highlight the intersection of untreated trauma, toxic masculinity, and social media amplification. Shamarcus's criminal history, the 5 years in prison for assault and weapons charges, became Exhibit A in arguments about how the justice system fails to address patterns of violence. The children's custody fell to family members who now faced the impossible task of explaining why mommy and daddy weren't coming home. A memorial scholarship was established in Zaria's name, supporting young mothers pursuing education, a fitting tribute to a woman who had used her platform to lift up other women. But perhaps the most significant impact was the shift in how people consumed social media content involving relationships, arguments, and domestic disputes. Viewers became more likely to report concerning content, platforms improved their response protocols, and creators took more responsibility for the content they shared. The digital reckoning wasn't perfect, and it didn't bring Zaria back. But it transformed her death from a senseless tragedy into a catalyst for change, ensuring that her voice, silenced by violence, continued to echo through every conversation about domestic violence, social media responsibility, and the price of digital voyeurism. The woman who had built her brand on authenticity and resilience became, in death, a symbol of why both authenticity and resilience matter, and why sometimes, they're not enough to survive in a world that too often mistakes entertainment for empathy. So what can we learn from this digital age tragedy? Zaria and Shamarcus Carr's story isn't just a cautionary tale about domestic violence, it's a masterclass in recognizing the warning signs that hide in plain sight, especially when social media becomes the stage for abuse. Let's break down the red flags that were visible to anyone paying attention. Shamarcus didn't just cheat on Zaria, he confessed to it publicly, using his infidelity as a weapon to humiliate her in front of thousands. This isn't honesty, it's abuse disguised as transparency. When someone uses public platforms to shame their partner, they're not being authentic, they're asserting dominance. "I swear you'll die," those words weren't spoken in private during a heated argument. They were broadcast to 2,000 people, weaponizing social media to terrorize not just Zaria, but everyone watching. Abusers use public threats to isolate their victims, making it clear that nowhere is safe, not even online spaces where the victim has support. Shamarcus's jealousy over Zaria's growing fame wasn't romantic, it was strategic. By undermining her success, questioning her loyalty, and making her social media presence a source of conflict, he was systematically isolating her from the community that could have helped her escape. Those 5 years in prison for assault and weapons charges weren't ancient history, they were a preview of coming attractions. Past violence is the strongest predictor of future violence, especially when combined with access to weapons and a history of controlling behavior. By making Zaria's career a source of conflict, Shamarcus was implementing a classic abuse tactic, economic control. If she couldn't work without causing problems at home, she couldn't achieve the financial independence necessary to leave. But recognizing red flags is only half the battle. The other half is understanding our responsibility as digital witnesses. If you see someone asking for help on social media, especially if they use phrases like, "I need help before I lose my life or freedom," take it seriously. Screenshot the content, report it to the platform, and if possible, contact local authorities. Don't assume someone else will handle it. Most social media platforms have specific procedures for reporting domestic violence. Learn them. Use them. The few minutes it takes to file a report could save someone's life. If someone in your online community is experiencing abuse, offer specific help rather than generic support. Instead of, "I'm here if you need anything," try, "I can help you research shelters," or "I'll drive you to appointments." Specificity shows sincerity. We need to demand better from social media companies. Algorithms that can detect copyright infringement should be able to identify domestic violence. Platforms that can monetize our attention should invest in protecting our safety. Zaria's voice continues to echo through her archived content, but her most important message was also her last: "Your kids need you, fight for it." This wasn't just advice to other mothers, it was a reminder that breaking cycles of abuse requires fighting not just for yourself, but for the next generation. Her children will grow up without their mother, but they'll also grow up knowing that she died fighting for a better life for them. For communities like Twin City, the lesson is clear: small towns aren't immune to domestic violence, and social media can amplify both the cry for help and the silence that follows. Rural communities need resources, training, and protocols for responding to digital-age domestic violence. The courage to leave toxic relationships isn't just about physical safety, it's about emotional, financial, and digital safety too. Abusers today use technology as a weapon, tracking their victims through social media, using online humiliation as control, and weaponizing shared digital spaces. Building support networks online and offline becomes crucial when abusers try to isolate their victims. Zaria's online community tried to help her, but they needed better tools, clearer protocols, and stronger connections to real-world resources. Subscribe for more stories that matter, and remember, if you're experiencing domestic violence, help is available. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233, and they have resources specifically for digital abuse. But beyond individual resources, we need systemic change. We need social media platforms that prioritize safety over engagement. We need law enforcement trained in digital domestic violence. We need communities that understand how abuse translates to online spaces. Most importantly, we need to remember that behind every social media feed is a real person with real struggles, real dreams, and real fears. Zaria wasn't just content for our consumption, she was a human being who deserved better from the man who claimed to love her and from the digital community that watched her suffer. Her legacy isn't just a cautionary tale, it's a call to action for anyone who believes that love shouldn't hurt, that help should be accessible, and that no one should die while 2,000 people watch through their phone screens. In Twin City's quiet streets, their home stands as a silent witness. The modest house on the 100 block of Fifth Avenue where Zaria once filmed her content about resilience and hope now stands empty, its windows dark, its rooms holding memories of both creation and destruction. The neighbors who once heard children's laughter now remember screams and gunshots. The community that once celebrated one of their own achieving social media success now grapples with how that same success became a target on her back. This is the haunting reality of digital-age domestic violence. It doesn't stay contained to private spaces. It spills onto public platforms, creating witnesses out of strangers and trauma out of entertainment. 2 children will grow up without parents, raised by relatives who must somehow explain why love turned to violence, why daddy hurt mommy, why neither of them is coming home. The archived videos remain online, a digital memorial to a woman who refused to let her struggles define her, who turned vulnerability into strength, who built community out of shared experience. But these videos now carry a different weight. They're evidence of a life cut short, dreams interrupted, a voice silenced by the very violence it spoke out against. The statistics tell a broader story that extends far beyond Twin City, Georgia. Every minute, nearly 20 people are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. 1 in 4 women will experience severe intimate partner violence in their lifetime. But these numbers don't capture the new reality of digital abuse, the public humiliation, the online stalking, the weaponization of social media platforms. Technology has amplified both the reach of abuse and the potential for intervention. The same platforms that allowed Shaw Marcus to terrorize Zaria publicly also enabled 2,000 people to witness her final plea for help. The same internet that connected her to supportive followers also provided her abuser with tools for control and humiliation. We're living through an evolution of intimate partner violence, where abuse extends into digital spaces, where private pain becomes public spectacle, and where the line between entertainment and exploitation grows dangerously thin. The bigger picture reveals uncomfortable truths about our society's relationship with violence, particularly violence against women. We consume true crime content, we watch domestic disputes unfold on reality TV, we scroll through social media arguments for entertainment, but when real violence erupts in real time, we're unprepared to respond effectively. Prevention through education and awareness becomes crucial, but it's not enough. We need systemic changes in how social media platforms handle domestic violence, how law enforcement responds to digital threats, how communities support survivors, and how society addresses the root causes of intimate partner violence. The questions that emerged from Zaria's case demand answers. How do we balance free speech with safety? How do we protect people from digital abuse without restricting their ability to seek help online? How do we train first responders to handle crimes that unfold across multiple platforms simultaneously? But beyond policy questions are human ones. How do we teach our children that love doesn't include control? How do we create communities where asking for help is met with effective action? How do we ensure that no one else dies while thousands watch through their screens? Zaria's legacy lives in every conversation about domestic violence red flags, every platform policy change that prioritizes safety, every person who recognizes that intervention is everyone's responsibility. Her story forces us to confront the reality that we're all connected now, through social media, through shared digital spaces, through the algorithms that decide what we see and when we see it. The woman who called herself Duchess Dior understood something profound about social media's power to build community, create connection, and transform individual struggles into collective strength. But she also learned, too late, that the same visibility that can save you can also mark you for destruction. Behind every social media feed is a real person navigating real challenges, fighting real battles, hoping for real support. The responsibility of digital communities extends beyond likes and comments to recognition and response when someone's life hangs in the balance. We have the tools to do better. We have the knowledge to recognize warning signs. We have the platforms to amplify calls for help and the resources to provide meaningful support. What we need now is the will to act on what we know, to prioritize human life over digital entertainment, to choose intervention over indifference. Zaria Carr's voice may have been silenced by violence, but her message continues to echo: your voice matters, your safety matters, and you matter. In a world where abuse can hide behind love, where control masquerades as care, where violence presents itself as passion, remember that real love doesn't hurt, real partnership doesn't require surrender, and real strength sometimes means walking away from what's killing you. The live stream may have ended, but the conversation continues. The case may be closed, but the lessons remain open. The tragedy may be over, but the opportunity for prevention lives on in every person who learns to recognize the signs, speak up for the vulnerable, and refuse to let another Zaria die while the world watches. Remember, your voice matters, your safety matters, and you matter. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, help is available. National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. Crisis Text Line, text HOME to 741741. National Sexual Assault Hotline, 1-800-656-4673. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Don't assume someone else will help. Sometimes, you're the someone someone is waiting for.